As many of you may recall, back in May of 2011, the General Assembly passed a bill dealing with risk reduction earned credits. The premise being that if some of our incarcerated prisoners were to have good behavior, were to enroll and participate in various programs that would help them in the outside world, be the drug rehabilitation programs, drug education programs, anger management, high school equivalency programs, etc., that they would be eligible to earn good time, if you will, or early release time towards their sentence. That was the basic premise. Many of us agreed with that premise, with some differences. Those of us on the Republican side of the aisle, almost to a person, believed that that should be restricted for nonviolent criminals, that early release should not be granted regardless of how well the inmate behaves or what programs they participate in, to those inmates who were convicted of violent felonies. That debate went on in May in both the House and the Senate in 2011, and that point of view, the one I just told you about, lost. The bill was passed, signed into law by the governor, and was slated to take effect on October 1st, 2011. It's also worthy to note that the bill you were able to grant at the discretion of the Commissioner of Corrections this earned good time, if you will, this early release time, retroactively back to 2006 at the rate of at least 5 days per month. Many of us felt that this was going to be a subjective application by the Commissioner of Corrections, that in fact if during the course of their incarceration, if the inmate who might have earned a early release credit for 1 month subsequently misbehaved or acted out or violated the rules, they would be those good credits, those early release credits, would be subject to forfeiture. The details of how the program were to be administered were not clear, obviously, in the passage of the bill. This all came to a head in June of 2012 when a man by the name of Frankie Resto murdered a 70-year-old Meriden small business owner. Resto was a violent felon who had been released early from prison based on the risk reduction earned credit program. Details of the case were published and let out to the public, and it seems like Mr. Resto, who was serving a 10-year sentence, had various violations during his term in prison for disorderly conduct, inciting fights and riots, intoxication, burning his mattress, etc. In fact, so much so that in May of 2011, Mr. Resto was denied parole. He was also denied placement in a halfway house, those powers that be believing that he was too much of a risk to be either given parole or put in a halfway house. Nonetheless, the program kicked in, and Mr. Resto was granted 199 days of early release time and was released in April of 2012 and committed this murder on June 27th. Subsequent to that, 2 months later, on August 27th, 2012, another individual by the name of Keslin Mendez, also known as Willie Batts, also committed a murder of another convenience store owner. It was revealed that Mr. Mendez was also a recipient of early release credits, despite a lengthy history with regard to, while incarcerated, various offenses and breaking of the rules. It gave pause to all of us, and we were very concerned as to how this program was being administered, because we learned that over 7,500 inmates were recipients of this early release time. Many of us made inquiries with the Department of Corrections and Under Secretary Michael Lawler, who's in charge of the program, and were not given adequate answers. Both our ranking members, Senator Kissel and Representative Hetherington, wrote to the chairs of the Judiciary Committee, the Committee of Cognizance over such matters, asking them for a bipartisan informational hearing wherein we would invite before us the Commissioner of Corrections, Under Secretary Lawler, and others who were familiar with the case. That request for a hearing was denied by Chairman Fox and Chairman Coleman. We then felt it necessary to at least hold our own informational hearing, and that's why we're here today. To do so, we made a formal invitation to Under Secretary Lawler, to also the Commissioner of Corrections, Arnone, and also the head of the Pardons and Parole Bureau. When that invitation was sent out, Under Secretary Lawler made a public statement that he would not participate and would tell the others not to participate. We are fortunate, however, to have the victim's advocate, Michelle Cruz, with us today, who is prepared to testify. That is the timeline, and that is why we are here.